Welcome into the Stack Shack Sports Show. Today is a Thursday, which means we're talking Valorant. We didn't talk Valorant or really anything last week because I was getting over a bit of a sickness that I had. But today we're back with the Valorant content. Was going to preview the matchups that are starting tomorrow. Tomorrow is VCT kickoff tournament, but 100 Thieves Valorant just released their first and what will be their new documentary series covering their Valorant team this season. And I think this first video had a lot of really interesting quotes. Some that I think bode really well for the team, and some that really show to me how broken this team was last year and how important the IGL and head coaching changes were this offseason. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, I encourage you, go watch the whole video. We're going to watch a couple of clips today as I give some of my thoughts. But the first thought that was just so incredibly key to me, and it's what they actually start the video with. They're introducing the new head coach, obviously. But what he had to say about now assistant coach Mike's, I think, is really, really interesting and key. So let's take a listen at that.
Mike has a really good understanding of defense. So a lot of defense and scouting is what you'll see primarily out of Mike. I honestly feel like Mike is probably one of the easiest people to work with. He's honestly just very patient. I'd say I'm the final decision maker when it comes to everything, like how players individually progress, what the team culture looks like.
I think that was a really interesting quote, and I think it bodes well for 100 Thieves Valorant. Mike takes over last season, first time being a head coach, takes over really a team that had a lot of high hopes. They had been peaking kind of at the right time towards the end with Sean Garris as the head coach, and then they add in Cryo. It was a pretty quick, easy plug-and-play. He was supposed to be a big upgrade, right? And we were all excited as 100 Thieves fans about what the team could do. And unfortunately, last season, early on, there was some success, right? Winning home ground and all of that. But then it just kind of fell apart a little bit. And some of the criticisms we had were players underperforming, seeming to be stuck on these set plays and not really good at ad-libbing or being spontaneous in the mid-round and things of that nature. I think it's really interesting. Notice the couple of things that the head coach was speaking of. Mike stays on, which I think is a huge nod to the 100 Thieves organization as well as Mike's as an individual person. He stayed on. He took a demotion, right? He was a head coach. He's now an assistant coach. But he was an assistant coach under Garris as well. And I think that just fits him better. And that's, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Right? There's nothing wrong with finding a role that you fit better in. One thing that I think was really interesting is the talk about defense. Well, if you look back at statistics, especially last season, our defense tended to be a little bit better. We had some good moments on defense later in the year. So I think that's just another nod towards Mike's ability to really craft a good defense, maybe focus on the scouting. But what was our criticism of Mike's last season? I know for me, it was that I felt like our players didn't play up to their individual potential, right? Their individual growth. Sometimes they didn't feel ready from a team perspective. The culture didn't necessarily feel great. Well, that's what the head coach has been brought in to fix. And moving into that, what was this culture and what is the culture he wanted to make? He talks about that in just a moment.
Our atmosphere. This year, I wanted to make it a lot about like positive reinforcement, positive just energy in general. You have to enjoy what you do to like fully feel motivated, not burnt out by it.
Notice the emphasis on a positive atmosphere. Positive atmosphere. This was a team that towards the end of the season last year just didn't believe in themselves. They were playing not to their full potential. They were being very negative. And it's interesting because I think that was one of the main emphases you see throughout this entire video is a level of rigidity and a level of just negativity that was around the program. And I think that really does demonstrate why 100 Thieves needed to make a head coaching change Obviously, Mike's is still there. Not a bad guy, just didn't quite get the culture right, maybe. Bring in a head coach to handle more of the culture, and then bring in a new IGL. And by bringing in a new IGL and Boostio, I think that can really help shape this new culture, this positive culture. You're bringing in a world champion, right? World champion head coach, world champion IGL. They know what kind of culture needs to be present for a winning team, and they can bring that in. And Bang actually talked about some of how that culture is influencing and, shall we say, improving their gameplay.
There's definitely a big difference between having like Tony, Dan, and Kel coming in. It's kind of like a 180 in the team culture. It felt like we were a lot more strict before, which is fine. I feel like it's just a different ideal and play styles. I feel like we definitely needed to be a little bit more loose. A lot of times we use the word "it's off vibes," the kind of plays we make. It's kind of a troll word that we use, but I mean, it's funny, but it also is kind of true.
I think that was really insightful from Bang to say this is a complete 180 in our culture, and addresses directly one of the criticisms we had of them. They were really good on set plays, specifically set plays that Sean Garris would run previously. But then, if that kind of broke down, or somebody used a counter strat against them, they became a little predictable and were struggling to get out of that. And from a vibes perspective, this positive atmosphere that's interjecting, I think it really reveals how broken this team was towards the end of the year last year, and how this revitalization was very needed. I don't think stellar was necessarily a huge problem, but sometimes when you've been in a situation for a long period of time, you'll hear this in other sports where the coaching, the same, terms and ideas and concepts, the rah-rah of a certain coach or the opinion of a certain coach, it starts to get repetitive, fall on deaf ears a little bit as you lose your voice in the room, they say. And I think that might have been happening, where this culture was just kind of deteriorating. They weren't playing up to their standards. They weren't playing up to their individual ability of what they expected to do. They're watching other teams pass them up. They're watching other teams adapt and progress faster and better than they are to new strategies, to new agents, to new maps, etc. And bringing in a new IGL and bringing in a new head coach, really fleshing out this culture and really being a big full 180, according to Bang, which I think is huge. And they did something that's very insightful. They started banning some of those negative phrases. And I thought that what they had to say about this, both the teams and the coaches, about this new kind of strategy and this really focused look on mindset, I thought it was very insightful.
I will say there has been a few banned phrases, I guess I'll put it. Just jokes that are like, made to be funny or like self-deprecating. People on the team were making jokes about like if I do this, I'm gonna get cut, or if I do that, I'm gonna get cut.
We're upset or like sad about last year, and like, oh, we're unconfident, and we're like,
anything that we kind of deem in that region of like things that it's like, what's the point of saying? We've just been like kind of banning those phrases, and what's been good is that everybody keeps everybody accountable to it.
I think this is a great concept and a great idea, and I think it does bode well. While there might be some concerns about, they're playing a little bit more off of vibes, they were so good off of their set plays previously, it's like, do we trust them? Do they have the ability to do that? How long is that going to take to practice and work together? I think that's a reason that they struggled a bit in their first matches at the Ludwig Tarek Invitational with this new roster. Set plays, those you can kind of pick up quickly, right? You just drop them in. This is what you do. You do this. You go here. You look at this angle. You throw your smoke here. You throw your stun here. You entry here. This is our play. But when you have to be spontaneous, that takes a little bit more teamwork, a little bit more intuition, right? To where the other players are going to be and what they're going to do in those split-second moments. And that takes a lot longer and a lot more practice to build up. So I think in some ways, you might hear, we're playing off the vibes, right? And yes, that's a joke phrase, right? It's a bit of a troll phrase, as Bang said. But still that concept, you might go, oh, no, hold on. You were good off set plays. What are you playing off vibes for? You've always been said that they weren't good at playing off vibes. Well, I think the key is you got to get some practice in, get the roster together, and I think you'll see some benefits from that, right? And then this banned phrases concept, I mean, this idea of, oh, I'm going to get cut, oh, I'm going to... And yes, they're joking, they're having a good time. Self-deprecation can be, in some ways, healthy. But when it goes to the level that it sounds like it was, where everything was just down, banning those phrases, keeping each other accountable, I think it's a great idea and bodes really well. It does show how broken that mindset really was, right? How the leadership changes needed to happen, how bad this team's culture was, probably last season, and how they're really at the early stages of trying to get back on track. It was a good team, underperformed, kind of started self-sabotaging themselves. Now they're trying to get back on track. And it ends with a conversation about their complete change in process and their new outlook for the team, which I think was a great way to wrap up this video and show that turnaround really starting to take shape.
So I know it's easy to look at the 2 tournaments we already played and think that, we haven't done too well. I'd say, especially from our practice and especially from the roster that we have, my point of view, there's a ton to be excited about. And I think that the way that the 100 Thieves was playing last year is not even remotely close to the way that this team is going to play this year. Be confident and trust the process, trust what we're doing here, that every single day we're making big strides and big improvements.
I'm definitely super confident and happy with what Tony has brought to the team. So we should be very happy and confident, and you guys should be happy to watch us in the kickoff tournament.
And that kickoff tournament starts tomorrow. 100 Thieves will not be playing tomorrow, but definitely be tuning in on YouTube and Twitch to the VCT Kickoff Americas tournament. I just think it's so interesting to hear, and it backs up some of what I was saying in my predictions for VCT. I said, you got to give this 100 Thieves roster a chance to really gel. They're making a lot of big changes. When you institute a new IGL, a new coach, a full culture 180, as Bang was talking about, it takes some time. And to judge this team based off of their performance in the Ludwig Tarek Invitational, I think even in that tournament, and the same could be said a little bit for the Cloud9 team in that tournament as well, I felt like both of these Tier 1 teams that had some decent-sized roster moves, 100 Thieves having probably one of the most impactful ones in that they're switching out the IGL, they're switching out a coach. They're putting in a whole new system, a whole new game plan, right? Those are big changes. They did seem to get better as the tournament went on. And really, they had only practiced maybe for a couple of weeks before that. Now, we've had a couple of months, and that is why I am still excited for 100 Thieves Valorant this season. I think they have some serious potential. The roster on paper feels like a team that could win a championship. It just has never performed up to those expectations. Last season, on paper, that roster was good enough to do it, but individual players did not play up to their standards that we expected from them, and it led to really a disappointing season for 100 Thieves Valorant. Here's to hoping this season is better. It looks like it is. It looks like it might take some time. Will we see it this weekend? I think we will. I think we'll see some big improvements. Will it lead to a qualification? We'll have to wait and see. That is my prediction. I do believe they will qualify out of the group stage. I don't have them winning their first matchup. If you're interested in all my picks for the VCT kickoffs, the video is linked on my channel. Go check it out. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you see the same kind of huge culture change needed that I did and that I'm excited to see is starting to be introduced in 100 Thieves Valorant? What are your expectations for a team that made these big head coaching and IGL changes in the offseason? Let me know down below, and we'll see you tomorrow.